Angry Jack. Angry Jack is a minor character remembered for his booming commercials in which he aggressively yells at customers to buy shells from his emporium. His angry persona was originally nothing more than a sales gimmick. In reality, Jack isn't truly an angry person, at least not until SpongeBob SquarePants enters his life. When SpongeBob visits Angry Jack's emporium to buy a new shell for Gary, what should have been a simple transaction turns into chaos. SpongeBob's clumsiness leads him to accidentally destroy every shell in the shop. This single mistake triggers Jack's transformation from a salesman with a loud voice to a character consumed with real rage. His fury escalates beyond shouting as he physically charges at SpongeBob, demanding extreme payment for the damages, not in money, but in SpongeBob's arms, legs, and other body parts. What makes Angry Jack stand out among SpongeBob's many adversaries is that he didn't start as hostile. His hatred for SpongeBob is born entirely from SpongeBob's reckless behavior. SpongeBob never intended to cause harm, but his uncontrollable energy pushed Jack past his breaking point. By the end of the encounter, Jack isn't just a loud businessman, he becomes someone who genuinely despises SpongeBob, representing how even an innocent mistake can unleash very real anger. Kevin, the Sea Cucumber. Kevin the Sea Cucumber is the arrogant leader of the Jelly Spotters, a group dedicated to jellyfishing. To SpongeBob, Kevin is everything he admires, confident, admired, and fully immersed in jellyfishing. SpongeBob idolizes him and desperately wants to join his club. But Kevin makes it clear immediately. He doesn't consider SpongeBob worthy. Rather than simply rejecting him, Kevin humiliates SpongeBob through hazing. He forces him into a series of increasingly absurd and dangerous challenges under the false promise that completing them will earn membership. These tasks include enduring jellyfish stings, facing ridiculous physical trials, and essentially serving as entertainment for Kevin and his followers. SpongeBob, ever eager to please, throws himself into every challenge with total enthusiasm. What makes Kevin's disdain notable is that he never once considered SpongeBob as an equal. The challenges were not tests, they were designed to embarrass him. Even after SpongeBob proves himself again and again, Kevin reveals he never intended to let him in. His cruelty backfires when the mistreated jellyfish turn against him, giving SpongeBob an unintentional victory. Kevin's hatred for SpongeBob is rooted in superiority and mockery. To him, SpongeBob was never a fellow jellyfisher. He was a target to ridicule. This dynamic makes Kevin one of the few characters who actively sought to break SpongeBob's spirit, showing his dislike through manipulation and humiliation. Flats, the Flounder. Flats the Flounder arrives at Mrs. Puff's boating school with one clear mission: to kick SpongeBob's butt. Unlike other antagonists, Flats's hatred has no explanation, no history, and no reasoning. He simply despises SpongeBob from the moment they meet. SpongeBob, with his usual optimism, tries to befriend Flats, but his attempts are rejected at every turn. Flats doesn't want conversation or compromise. His only goal is violence. He spends the episode physically attacking SpongeBob, attempting to fulfill his threat. But Flats's efforts are continually frustrated because SpongeBob's sponge body simply absorbs every punch, kick, and strike without damage. While SpongeBob feels no pain, Flats becomes more and more exhausted. This inability to achieve his goal only intensifies Flats's frustration. The more he tries, the more ridiculous his efforts appear. By the end, Flats has worn himself out, and SpongeBob remains unharmed, still eager for friendship. Flats represents pure, irrational hostility. He doesn't need a reason to hate SpongeBob. His character embodies raw aggression. His failure to hurt SpongeBob leaves him not only resentful, but also humiliated. Bubble Bass. Bubble Bass is one of SpongeBob's most infamous customers and a master of humiliation. In his first major appearance, he orders a Krabby Patty and then loudly accuses SpongeBob of forgetting the pickles. This public embarrassment devastates SpongeBob, who prides himself on being the best fry cook under the sea. The accusation rattles SpongeBob so deeply that he temporarily loses his ability to cook, overwhelmed with doubt about his own skills. The truth, however, is that Bubble Bass was lying the entire time. He had hidden the pickles under his tongue just to make SpongeBob look incompetent. His goal wasn't hunger or even dissatisfaction. It was to break SpongeBob's confidence. This moment highlights Bubble Bass's unique form of hatred. He doesn't attack SpongeBob physically or even directly insult him. Instead, he undermines his pride, damaging the one thing SpongeBob values most, his talent in the kitchen. Bubble Bass's actions reveal a cruel streak, proving he takes pleasure in tearing others down. His hostility is manipulative, showing how destructive words and lies can be when aimed at SpongeBob's greatest strength. Barnacle Boy. Barnacle Boy, the long-suffering sidekick to Mermaid Man, is initially introduced as part of a beloved superhero duo. But in retirement, he wants peace and quiet, not constant adventures. Unfortunately for him, SpongeBob idolizes the pair and repeatedly summons them with the conch signal, dragging them back into duty. While Mermaid Man is more tolerant, Barnacle Boy quickly loses patience. He sees SpongeBob as immature, disruptive, and inconsiderate, turning their retirement into endless interruptions. SpongeBob's enthusiasm transforms everyday life into chaos, forcing Barnacle Boy into situations he no longer wants. Barnacle Boy's resentment grows so strong that, in one storyline, he even joins forces with villains, tired of always being dismissed and overshadowed. This turn highlights just how much he dislikes SpongeBob's constant meddling. Unlike characters whose hatred stems from single encounters, Barnacle Boy's frustration builds over time. His dislike isn't explosive, but it's steady and persistent. For him, SpongeBob represents everything he wants to avoid: childish energy, lack of boundaries, and never-ending disruption. His hostility comes from exhaustion, making him one of SpongeBob's most reluctant enemies. The Tattletail Strangler. The Tattletail Strangler is one of the most direct examples of someone openly hating SpongeBob. After SpongeBob turns him in to the police for littering, the Strangler swears revenge, promising to strangle him as payback. His entire motivation is pure retaliation. Escaping custody, he disguises himself as a bodyguard to get close to SpongeBob. His plan is simple: protect SpongeBob until the right moment to attack. But SpongeBob's naive friendliness constantly derails his attempts. Every time he gets close, SpongeBob accidentally foils him through kindness, obliviousness, or sheer bad luck. The Strangler's hatred is unrelenting. He has no interest in anything else, dedicating his entire effort to eliminating SpongeBob. Yet his failure shows the irony of SpongeBob's effect on his enemies. By being himself, SpongeBob dismantles even the most determined hostility. The Strangler's descent into frustration demonstrates how SpongeBob unintentionally defeats hatred with innocence. DoodleBob. DoodleBob is one of the most unique and dangerous antagonists in SpongeBob's world. Created when SpongeBob and Patrick discover a magic pencil that brings drawings to life, SpongeBob sketches a crude version of himself. That drawing, DoodleBob, immediately turns hostile. Unlike other enemies, DoodleBob's hatred is rooted in identity. He sees SpongeBob not as an annoyance, but as a rival who threatens his existence. For DoodleBob to be the real SpongeBob, the original must be erased. This rivalry escalates as DoodleBob uses the pencil to manipulate reality, trapping SpongeBob in holes, flattening Patrick with a bowling ball, and altering the environment to his advantage. His hostility is wordless and destructive. He doesn't taunt or explain. He simply attacks. Every confrontation between the two is a fight for survival, with SpongeBob struggling against his own creation. DoodleBob embodies the darkest version of SpongeBob's energy, chaotic, uncontrollable, and consumed with erasing him. His hatred feels more existential than personal, making him one of the most dangerous adversaries SpongeBob has ever faced. Plankton. Sheldon J. Plankton is SpongeBob's most consistent antagonist, though his rivalry is usually aimed at Mr. Krabs. His obsession with stealing the Krabby Patty secret formula puts him in constant conflict with SpongeBob, who serves as the loyal guardian of the grill. Over time, Plankton's hatred for SpongeBob grows. He despises SpongeBob's optimism, resilience, and loyalty, all traits that repeatedly foil his schemes. Plankton has tried nearly everything, manipulating SpongeBob's emotions, sabotaging his work, and even hiring others to destroy him. Each attempt fails, leaving Plankton more resentful. Their relationship is complicated. At times, SpongeBob treats Plankton as a friend, and occasionally Plankton shows reluctant admiration in return. But whenever the secret formula is at stake, hatred dominates. For Plankton, SpongeBob isn't just an obstacle. He's a constant reminder of failure. His resentment illustrates how SpongeBob's goodness unintentionally creates enemies by standing in the way of darker ambitions. Mrs. Puff. Mrs. Puff's hatred is born not of malice but of endless frustration. As SpongeBob's boating school instructor, she has endured countless disasters. Every time he takes the wheel, chaos follows. Destroyed vehicles, wrecked property, and near-death experiences. Despite her efforts, SpongeBob never improves, and every year he returns to try again. The stress takes a toll. Mrs. Puff has fantasized about starting over in a new city under a different identity just to escape SpongeBob. In one case, she even preferred going to prison rather than face him in class again. For her, SpongeBob isn't a student. He's a never-ending nightmare. Her hatred is unique because it's rooted in fear and dread. SpongeBob adores Mrs. Puff and truly wants to impress her, but to her, his presence means destruction. She represents the long-term cost of SpongeBob's chaos. Even good intentions can make someone utterly miserable when repeated often enough. Squidward Tentacles. Squidward's hatred of SpongeBob is the most iconic in the series. Unlike others who dislike him for single incidents, Squidward suffers from SpongeBob's behavior every day. As his neighbor and coworker, he endures SpongeBob's constant laughter, excitement, and attempts at friendship. To Squidward, SpongeBob is everything he despises: loud, childish, and endlessly cheerful. SpongeBob considers Squidward his closest friend, but Squidward only sees a nuisance who ruins his peace. At work, SpongeBob's enthusiasm overshadows Squidward's apathy, and at home, his constant knocking interrupts Squidward's solitude. Though often played for comedy, Squidward's disdain runs deep. Every interaction reminds him of the life he wishes he had: quiet, artistic, and respected. Instead, he is trapped next to SpongeBob, whose optimism highlights Squidward's bitterness. Of all SpongeBob's adversaries, Squidward is the most consistent. His hatred isn't explosive or violent. It's weary and ongoing, making him the truest embodiment of resentment toward SpongeBob. Honorable mentions. Many minor characters also show frustration or hostility toward SpongeBob. Customers at the Krusty Krab complain about his over-the-top service. Classmates at boating school lose patience with his constant failures, and background fish often groan when he causes chaos in public. These brief moments highlight a broader theme. SpongeBob's boundless energy, while endearing to some, is unbearable to others. Even when hatred isn't long-lasting, the annoyance he provokes is widespread. These reactions reinforce the idea that SpongeBob's personality is polarizing, bringing joy to those who share his enthusiasm, but exasperation to those who don't. I'm going to keep dropping more of these cartoon breakdowns, so if that's your thing, stick around. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for being here, and catch you next time.